This edition of MacVoices is supported by you, our viewers and listeners, through our new Patreon campaign. If you get value from MacVoices, please consider helping support the show by visiting patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome back to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it seems like only yesterday, but it's actually been a little while since we talked to Mr. Joe Kissell, and so it seems only right that we get back on track. This time, though, we get to talk to Joe about one of his very favorite titles, Take Control of Apple Mail, 4th edition. Joe, how are you?
Oh, well, I'm all right, except for this stupid book. Except for this book that I've been intently laboring on.
Lovingly crafting, I'm sure.
That's right.
So
yes, I was trying to give Chuck the glare of death there because let us say that I have a kind of love-hate relationship with the book as well as with its subject matter.
Well, that's why, of course, I have to pull your chain a little bit. I mean, that's why I introduced it that way, because I know we've had some rather candid discussions about Apple Mail and your previous revisions in the past. And so I'm anxious to see from your perspective, after going through and doing the 4th edition, if things have improved or gotten worse or just maybe stayed about the same.
Well, let's start with the good news. Okay,
I'll take it.
So this book talks about Mail on both the Mac, so that's the Sierra and High Sierra versions of Mail, and iOS 11 Mail. And I was really happy to see that there were a few little things that I could cut out of the book because those were complaints about things that didn't work right or complaints about missing features. So I have been able to cut out a few things that I was previously complaining about. And that's always nice. So, for example, I have a lot of different email accounts, a lot of them, and all of them have like multiple mailboxes inside. So if I'm on my iPhone and I want to file a message in a mailbox, but that mailbox is like, in the Z's for the 19th account down, I'm exaggerating, but like I got to scroll forever to get to that mailbox, right? And it used to be that if you have a bunch of email accounts and they each have a bunch of mailboxes in them, that you could not collapse that list of mailboxes underneath the headers like you can do in Mail on your Mac, so that just show me the email, just show me the mailboxes in the lowest account down. Don't show me all the ones up there. Well, now you can. You can't collapse subfolders, but you can collapse the accounts themselves. So if an account has 15 mailboxes in it, you just tap the header and those all collapse. So all you see is the header, and then you can see the accounts below it. Now that might seem like a little thing, but like, oh, thank you. That's nice. Finally, something I've been complaining about since day one is a little bit better. So there are a number of things like that. There are things in the Mac version of Mail. Like some guy wrote to me, it must have been about a year ago, saying, did you know that if you're searching in Mail on a Mac, and you put something in quotation marks like, dark green shirt, because you want to find that exact phrase, not just like the individual words. You can do that, but did you know that if you do that, then those searches become case sensitive? And I'm like, really? And I tried it, and sure enough, he was right. And that's really irritating because it would be, you would have different results if like the word dark was in the capital D or not. But now that's not a problem anymore. Apple fixed that stupid little search bug. So yay! So okay. I'm going to celebrate whatever victories there are, and that's nice. But we have had some moments in years past where I maybe turned various other colors and complained about some things that Apple got really, really wrong. And then the time would go by and Apple would fix the things and I would kind of settle down to my normal size and color. And then now Apple is breaking things again. So I'm feeling a lot of anxiety and unhappiness about the state of Mail. And I know other people too are experiencing these unhappy feelings because they're emailing me to say, how do I fix this problem? And I'm like, sorry. So I'm unhappy about some changes we'll talk about. I'm especially unhappy about how Apple's changing things in such a way that it makes them hard to fix.
Okay, so why would Apple do that? Why would you intentionally? Well, yeah. Why would you intentionally change things, make them harder to fix if that's what the customers want, or is it a function of, okay, if I add this feature, I break another feature, or I deprecate that other feature?
Well, through long experience, and we've probably mentioned this before, I have learned that when anybody asks me a question that starts with the words, "Why does Apple?" I'm just like, I'm going to stop you right there, because no one can know.
Yeah.
Apple does stuff, and all the pundits go out and punditize, and they say, "Well, here's what Apple's really doing, or what Apple's really thinking, or what their master plan is." But I don't know. I mean, all the pundits only have guesses. Sometimes years later, we discovered that a certain guess was right or a certain guess was wrong. We don't know. Apple doesn't share their reasons for why they do certain things. Now, my guesses are things like they want to make their apps simpler for them to maintain, have less testing, less things that can break on their end, make life easier for the Apple geniuses, make life easier for the people that are doing support and testing and writing new versions of Mail. That could be part of why useful features disappear and so forth. It could also be that they're just looking for, what does the lowest common denominator customer want? How can we make this as simple as possible for the large majority of our customers, even though in so doing we are going to really, really break and screw up things for people that are more power users or really care about stuff and aren't content with that sort of lowest common denominator situation. So, I mean, the honest answer is I just don't know. I could hazard a guess, but my guess might be wrong, and we'll never know if I was right or wrong. But Apple tends to either take away capabilities that used to be helpful, or add stuff that they think everybody is going to love, but I really, really don't love it. And you can't turn it off.
And your speculation sort of falls in line with something that I've felt for a long time. That with some notable exceptions, Apple usually gives you a lot of pretty competent programs as a basic install. And so if you need a calendar program, you've got a perfectly good calendar program. If you need a reminders program, a notes program, I can go right on down the line. They give you, it may be Apple's version, but usually it's pretty competent. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's the way Mail is going. To your point, maybe not for the power users, but for the average user. And that's why I'm kind of anxious to hear some of the things maybe that have gone away, to see if I would be, because I do not use Apple Mail as my mail client. Mm-hmm. So, I know that I feel like I have relatively simple mail needs. I also know that there's some people that just, file incessantly, like you were saying on the iPhone, and do a lot of many more sophisticated things. So what has Apple taken away from you or from us or from the users that really is filling up your mailbox?
Well, I will give you a couple of examples that are not new. This was not changes that happened in High Sierra or in Sierra. These are older, but I'm mentioning them because they still bug me and they still bug a lot of other people. And then if I remember, I will give you some speculation as to why I think these happen. So you can compose an email message in plain text or in rich text. Plain text is you just send the characters, and the characters show up in whatever font, size, and style the recipient has their program set up to display. Rich text is you apply whatever fonts and sizes and styles and colors you want. And you want to make a bulleted list, you want to put something in bold, great, you do that. And it used to be that you get a message and it comes in both forms. You don't see this. This is invisible to you as the user, but an email message comes in, and you could choose. Do you want by default to see the rich text version, if there is one, or the plain text version? Because you write in rich text, but most email clients behind the scenes also include a plain text version of the message because that's still needed in some environments. So Apple took away the ability to change that default. Apple also took away the ability to manually switch between the plain text view and the rich text view. So basically, you get what you get. If somebody sends you a message and it's written in 38-point bright pink, Futura, because that's what that person really, really likes, tough luck. You can't look at the plain text version of it. Apple prevents you from doing that. And I really kind of resent that. I like having control over how my email messages look because I know what font and size and color is readable for me. And a lot of my correspondents have very different ideas about what's readable. And it just irks me that I don't get to have control over how my email looks anymore. Now, there's a flip side to this. Some people complain that, hey, well, I set things the way I want them in mail. This often comes up with attachments. You put some graphics in your email or whatever. And now the people on the other end are complaining that it doesn't look the way I made it look. So they have kind of the opposite complaint from mine, is that the formatting isn't being enforced properly. And there are some stories about that, and you might need to have a plugin or two, and you might need to fiddle with some settings and so forth. But even so, the optimal solution is to give both parties as much control as possible. Give the sender as much control as possible, recognizing that the recipient might override that. Also give the recipient as much control as possible, realizing that that might not give them the exactly optimal view of the message that the sender intended. But in trying to make mail easier to use, seemingly, more friendly, seemingly, Apple keeps chipping away at preferences and settings and things that would allow a user to exert control. And I'm kind of big on control. Yeah. So that's an example, or a collection of examples that, again, it's not new. This happened a while back, but more things like that are going on where I used to be able to tweak a thing to work just the way I wanted it to, and now I can't. There's a new feature in High Sierra called Top Hits. Now, there weren't a lot of changes, at least not a lot of changes that Apple mentions in High Sierra. But one of the things they made a big deal about is searching is way better now, because when you search, we're not just going to give you 1,000 or 10,000 hits or whatever it comes up with. We're going to do that, but also we're going to use our artificial intelligence and put the 1 or 2 or 3 emails that we're most certain are almost definitely the ones you are looking for at the top of the list in a top hits category, because we love you and we want to help you. We want to make your life easier. We want to highlight those things that you are almost definitely searching for. And we know, because we've looked at like how many times you've corresponded with somebody and how recently you've corresponded with somebody and how close the text matches, all these things. Top hits. It's great, man. It's going to revolutionize your life. I freaking hate top hits. I hate them. I hate them because they're never right. I can't think of a single time, and I've done hundreds of searches in mail since this feature was added. I can't think of a single time when the thing that I was looking for made it to the top hits section. But what I have seen is where I've arranged a certain mailbox so that the older messages are on top and the newer messages are on the bottom, let's just say. And so Apple says, oh, here's your messages that we think you might like. And those go from like newest to oldest. and then it switches from oldest to newest. So it's like I first look at the ones that I think are going to be the thing I'm looking for, and I scan through those like nope, nope, nope. Then I got to scroll all the way down to the bottom of my list to find the recent ones that are really the ones that I'm looking for. And you can't turn this off. There's no way. It's not just that there isn't a checkbox. There isn't a secret default right command. You can't turn this off. If you don't like top hits, tough. You have to live with it. And Apple wants us to buy this story that it's a universal good, that it's always going to make searching better, but it doesn't make searching better for me, and I can't get rid of it. Similarly, there's new logic that Apple employs. If you have multiple accounts, well, I'm going to go to compose a new message. Which of my email addresses should it come from? And Apple wants to just choose automatically. But it never chooses the right account, never, ever chooses the one that I want a message to come from. So you can still override that, thankfully. But it's, again, a matter of we know better. We are sure. We are so sure that we know what you want that we're just going to do what we know that you want and not let you do what you really want. So I've been rambling. I'm sorry. I'm a little worked up about.
Yeah, you've changed color again, and I'm having trouble seeing the color behind the beard, but you're changing color.
That's right.
So is this a case, Joe, of feature bloat, or is this? I mean, obviously, I can't believe that there's anybody at Apple that would intentionally say we're going to do this because we think it won't work. I think they really do believe that some of these things will help people, and so great. I'm with you. The inability to turn off a feature like that is a little surprising, and hopefully they will fix that part of it anyway, whether the AI works or not for you.
Yeah,
that does seem. It seems like somebody's trying to keep their job.
Well, I can't tell you how many times something has happened to me in mail, and I've said often out loud, like to my computer, as though Siri's really paying attention. I can't believe anybody at Apple actually uses this app for email. If anyone who works for Apple actually used this app for their email, surely they would have encountered this really obvious glaring deficiency that I run into 5 times a day, and they would have done something about it. So I don't get it. There's this thing that's been going on for me for months where I will open up mail one day, and there's this recovered messages folder. And what appears to have happened is that some unknown thing went wrong. Maybe mail crashed, or I don't even know. Something unexpected happened. And Apple is trying to be helpful. It's like, oh, we think this one message might have gotten lost. So don't worry, we have recovered it for you. We put it in this special mailbox for you so you can get it back now. I'm like, okay. But I look at that message and I'm like, no, I actually do have another copy of that in another mailbox. It wasn't missing in the first place. So I don't know. So I delete the message. I delete the recovered messages mailbox, which, by the way, there's one for each of your accounts. So I go ahead and delete that. I keep on using mail. I do my thing. Another day or two go by, and there's another recovered messages mailbox there that Apple Mail has created. They never tell you why. Nothing comes up on the screen and says, we did this because this happened, or here's how to prevent this from happening in the future, or here's how to fix the underlying problem. There's no information given at all. All there is this extra mailbox, which for me is just clutter, and it almost always contains duplicates of messages that are happily, safely stored elsewhere. But no matter how many times I delete those messages and the mailboxes that contain them, they keep coming back. And there's a story there that Apple is trying to be helpful. We are worried that somebody might accidentally lose a message because, there was a bug or a thing didn't finish syncing when you quit, or I don't know, something went wrong. So don't worry. We saved this message for you. It's safe. You can have full confidence in mail that your messages aren't going to disappear. They've been recovered for you. When you tell it that way, it sounds really nice.
Sure.
But when what you actually experience is these duplicate messages and these unwanted mailboxes keep popping up with no explanation, no matter how many times I delete them. That's a less good story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, since I don't use Apple Mail, I haven't run into some of these issues, but I can definitely see how that would be annoying. I think every email client has its own set of annoyances. I mean, I have yet to find a perfect email client.
Well, now you see, now you've hit upon it.
Now I've done it.
No. I'm saying, how many times have people said, well, if mail upsets you that much, because clearly it upsets you, why don't you just stop using it? Use something else. And I hear that. That is, there are a lot of other email programs out there, and I have tried every single Mac email client that I can get my hands on. The thing is, all of them have other things that annoy me even more. So for all of Mail's faults, which are many, there are still things that it lets me do that other apps do not let me do. There are still, it still is, taken in its entirety, a less irritating email experience for me than anything else that I have so far encountered. So your mileage may vary. You may find another email client that works beautifully for you, that has no flaws based on the way you think about and handle email, and more power to you. But for me, the things that Mail still, in spite of all this, manages to do right that no other email client for Mac has managed to do yet are what keep me increasingly reluctantly using it and writing about it.
Okay, so maybe we'll put an end to the therapy session, or at least let it trail off a little bit. What is new in this book? I mean, because obviously you're not telling people exactly how to use Mail, and quite as much, or maybe you are. I don't know. Or is this more? This is how you solve the problems that you can solve.
So this book does a few things. So first of all, it was my custom for quite a few years to update my book on Apple Mail every time Apple Mail was updated. You know, new version of Mac OS 10 comes out, new version of OS 10 comes out, new version of Mac OS comes out, I update my book. But I did not update it when when Sierra came out. So I did update it for El Capitan back whenever that was, 2015 or something. But I didn't update it for Sierra. And then another year went by, and I also did not update it for High Sierra. This version, therefore, covers both Sierra and High Sierra. And one could argue that it is a year and a half late. I should have really done this, fall of 2016. And, I didn't, partly because well, I was busy, but also partly because I was very annoyed with Mail, and I felt as though I could keep doing what the book has always done, which is to explain as many of the features, particularly the non-obvious features, as I can. Like, I'm not going to tell you, well, to create a new mail message, you press Command N, and then you type in an address, and you type in a message, and then you click send. Well, nobody needs a book to do that. Okay, that's the obvious stuff. My books have always been about the non-obvious stuff. And so I wanted to explain the things that maybe were not clear. And I especially, as I've done from day one, wanted to explain how you solve the problems that you're undoubtedly going to encounter. So this time I do cover the new features that were added in Sierra and High Sierra plus iOS 11. But I don't have very many more solutions to problems than I used to have. What I do have, however, is sympathy. So people write to me rather frequently, and they say, okay, I encountered this weird thing in Mail. It must be me. I must have done something wrong. It couldn't be that Apple is that lame, that it can't be that that Mail is not capable of doing the thing that I want it to do. It must be me. How do I fix my problem? And what I'm saying in this version of the book is you can't fix the problem. because it's not you, it's Apple. You got to think back to that scene in Good Will Hunting with Robin Williams and Matt Damon, and he just keeps saying, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault." Folks, if you're having trouble with Apple Mail, it's not your fault. It's not that you have done something wrong. It's not that you weren't smart enough to come up with the right settings or perform the magical incantation in Terminal or whatever. It's not that, you're too dense to understand how the thing works. It's not you. It's Apple. Apple has basically they've broken stuff, and they have made it weird in inexplicable ways. And I can tell you that you are not alone. And there are some things you can fix, but there are some things that you can't fix. Complain to Apple. Don't necessarily expect a result, but if my sympathy and reassuring you that you are not alone can help in any small way, that is in some cases all I can offer.
So, Joe, this is sort of an unusual question to ask, but do you therefore keep a list of features that have disappeared, or things that you can't do that you used to be able to do, or do you try to address some of this a different way?
I don't. I ought to do that. I really ought to do that. I don't have a list like that, or at least not written down. That's not a bad idea. I know a guy. I know a guy who is working on a new email client. And both he and I expected that it was going to have shipped long before now, but things happened and it hasn't shipped yet. And he's working on it, and it's in a very private beta test because it's just not quite there yet. And I've been looking forward to this for quite a few years because based on what I know about this guy. And his expertise, I think this one might finally be the one that I say, okay, I'm willing to leave Apple. I wasn't willing to leave it for Outlook, and I wasn't willing to leave it for Airmail, and I wasn't willing to leave it for Gmail, and I wasn't willing to leave it for Postbox, and the whole, the list. But this might be the one. This might be the one. Now, it's not soup yet, so we'll see. I can't really make that evaluation until it's done and it has all the features that it needs, and I can make a rational decision. But I've had in the back of my head for a couple of years that it's going to happen. It's on its way. That might be the solution, and that has sort of kept me from worrying too much about mail. It's sort of kept me from caring too much, because I figure, well, there's an imminent solution coming soon, and so maybe just don't have to worry about it. But we'll see.
Yeah, because I too, every time you see a new mail client come out, you think, okay, I really should go and check it out. And I find myself going back to, my current solutions and my current workflow, because first of all, it's painful to change that workflow. I'm sorry, Adam and I talked recently. Email is not dead. I know there are a lot of people that are saying it's dead. It's nowhere close to dead. And especially in the business world, it's nowhere close to dead. And so, you set up workflows and things that work for you. And those are painful to change. And especially if you're really not getting a major gain. I mean, it would be nice to remove some small pain points, but, I would want it to be the equivalent of reattaching a limb before I would change some of that, because it's just too difficult, and we've all got too much to do, and definitely in email too much to do. So I'm kind of with you.
If Apple killed Mail tomorrow, Mail the app, not Mail the concept. If Apple just said, no, we're just not shipping it anymore, I've got umpteen other email clients on my system right now, and I could switch. I could make do with Thunderbird. I could make do with Outlook. I can make do with almost anything. I would grumble a lot. I would be irritated at things. Would I be able to send and receive messages with other people and put them in mailboxes? Of course I can do that. I would be able to get the job done. It just wouldn't be as efficient or as fun or as easy for the ways that I have evolved to interact with my email as what I have now. So, there's a certain point of view from which once I got used to a different kind of pain, I wouldn't notice it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah.
But all the same, I would just rather not.
Yeah. Yeah. If you stub your toe, you forget that your hand hurt a minute ago.
That's right.
So, you just go from pain to pain.
So think of this book as a big, heavy, like brick that you can drop on your toe. So you're not buying this book so much to make your hand stop hurting directly, as to make something else hurt, to make you forget about the pain. Does that work?
I think I get the concept. I'm not sure that's the way you want to advertise the book, but. But at the same time, once again, people that are new to mail, and there's one other fallacy here, Joe, that maybe you can address a little bit. How much of this is you and me? Because we're no brag intended, but we're both pretty heavy tech users. Right. And you definitely more so than me, but still, we spend a lot of time in front of these screens. Are we just not the audience for this stuff? I mean, are we expecting too much out of a free email client?
My expectations about what mail should be are based on what it used to be. So, several years ago, I was really, really happy with mail. It was doing all the things that I wanted out of an email. I mean, all the things. Of course, I used some third-party plugins. I wouldn't be able to use mail without my plugins, but mail plus those plugins was just fine with me. Fine with me in a way that no other email client was. And then they started taking away stuff and changing stuff. So I felt like, that was the basis of my expectations, is what it actually was. It's not like I'm coming to this from a blank slate. If I were starting from a blank slate, then it might be more true that, well, my expectations as a heavy text user are just different. They might be, but where did those expectations come from? They came from Apple's email program. I didn't pull them out of the air. So, I get a lot of the people that write to me saying, I have this problem, will you help me? Are on the whole not heavy duty tech power users. They're just ordinary folks. They're like, well, I wanted to send this picture to my grandson and da-da-da-da-da happened. Or I tried setting up my such and such account and this weird thing happened. I looked for this and I couldn't find it. Where is it? And so even though my approach to email might be a lot different from somebody who isn't, as into it as I am, I've always felt as though the audience I am trying to address with this book is not necessarily the power users like me, but it's just the ordinary people having problems. And that's where my sense is that, I mean, yes, it is also falling down for the power users, but it's primarily falling down for, the sorts of folks that are just frustrated and just trying to do ordinary stuff.
Well, I guess then if you're frustrated with mail, go and see if Joe maybe can help you with the features that are still there or what they've added in. And
yeah, and let me just say too, okay, I've spent all this time just complaining, but the book, the point of the book is to show you how to do things that might be uh, might be hard to figure out on your own. Okay. And I think that it still does that. I think that whether it's just talking about the newly added features or whether it's talking about things that have been there for a long time, I think it does a very successful job of saying, now you may not have ever realized you could do this because like it's not in the documentation anywhere. Apple hasn't made a big deal about it, but look, you can do this. And people read that and go, oh, I can do that. That's neat. Thank you. So I'm all about helping people discover how to do things that they just they might have been putting themselves to extra effort that they didn't need, or they might not have realized that a feature existed, or that there's an easier way to do something. So it is that, and it does contain some meaningful and helpful troubleshooting information. All I want to do is to not represent I don't want to misrepresent this book as containing all the solutions to all the mail problems, because a lot of the problems just don't have solutions. But again, it's not you.
Joe, since this is the 4th edition, I want to make sure we get to this part. We always do get to the pricing and all, but since this is the 4th edition, how are you handling upgrades or updates or whatever for existing mail book users?
Yeah, so we always give our customers who have earlier editions discounts on newer editions. So that is the case now too. If you already owned a copy of any previous version of any of my Apple Mail books under various titles, then you should have probably gotten an email from me by now saying, here is how to get a heavily discounted copy of the new book. If you didn't get an email, then you go to the cover of your PDF, or you can find, if you have a different version, you can find a link inside, the ebook extras link. And you click ebook extras, and that will take you to a page that says, oh, I see that you have, the 3rd edition or the 2nd edition or whatever of this book. Here's how you can buy the 4th edition for a special low price. So the cover price for new purchasers is $14.99. You will get let us just say a healthy discount if you had an older version, and you can find that either by way of the email or the ebook extras link.
Perfect. Thank you. So, I mean, it sounds like if you're going to be an Apple Mail user, this is a book that you definitely need to have, because it will show you what can be done with mail and some of the things that are maybe less than obvious.
And by the way, even though we've spent almost all the time talking about the Mac version of Mail, this does cover the iOS version of Mail too. So if you've got an iPad Pro and you're like, well, I remember that there was something about like dragging in attachments from other apps and something multitasking, and can I use my Apple Pencil to draw? And like there's stuff that you can only do, or that you do very differently if you have an iOS device. So this covers that too. So even if you only use iOS, or if you use both iOS and a Mac, this book will tell you how to get the most out of Apple Mail.
Perfect. Joe, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. If not to get you wound up, just to hear kind of what's on your mind and what your take is on some of this stuff. It is frustrating when your tech doesn't perform the way you want it to, need it to, or think it should, and that's why you do take control.
Pretty much.
So we will be seeing you again in the coming months.
I imagine so. Oh, I got so much to do. I have this. I'm looking at a thing over here that gives me some hints about stuff that I need to be doing in the future, and there are a lot of them. I think there's going to be a stretch of time during which you don't hear a lot from me. We got some other authors working on some fantastic books. It might be a few months before I have a new book. I am working on other stuff relevant to Take Control books that I think a lot of people are going to like a lot and are going to find really interesting. Stuff that is not exactly books, but that is pertinent. And I just got to like sit and make things happen for a while. But I will let you know when the time comes.
Well, you're always welcome. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. Thank you for showing up. If you have comments, you're welcome to direct them to me, direct them to Joe, or start a discussion in our new Facebook group. Well, it's not so new anymore, but it's a place where you can go and share some of your experiences, your thoughts with mail or just about anything Apple related. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Mac Voices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep Mac Voices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.